Ho, 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 everyone, and welcome to the 7th day of the 12-day of preps. I have to think for a second there. And be sure you are commenting on every video for this 12 days of prep so you can be entered in to win my books. And I should have the pre-orders to a couple new books that I'm coming out with at the end of this 12 days. We'll see how that works out. And if you would like to get involved with this, you are welcome to post a video about any of these topics. And just be sure to tag me. Okay, so today we're talking about living without electricity. You know, we lived off grid for a couple years, and I think, you know, when we're talking about living without electricity and off grid living, I'm more referring to just getting off of the electrical grid. And, you know, there's a few things to consider with that. First of all, what are you going to actually be powering? So what do you want to continue to power when you are off the electrical grid? You know, it feels like almost unlimited energy when we, you know, have light switches we can flick on and off, you know, the internet, you know, everything is infinite, right? Even this light that I'm using to power this, you know, the light that's on and all this stuff, it feels like infinite energy. It's not, right? It is finite. So we do have to consider when we're thinking about living off of, you know, the grid, right? You know, the grid's only been around maybe 100, you know, or so years, like legit, like everybody's had electricity kind of thing, about little around 100 years, somewhere around there. Air conditioning wasn't even invented till a little later after that. So, you know, most people didn't even have air conditioning for a really long time. Now heat has always been an easy source. You know, a lot of people have wood stoves, these kinds of things. So heat has never really been an issue for people, but air conditioning has always been a bit of a challenge for people. You know, people have built, you know, underground homes, or they've built like, you know, stone homes, things like that, you know, adobe homes. You know, they've basically built energy efficient homes, which has helped, you know, so they don't need air conditioning. But now, you know, with the home type of homes that we build these days, it's almost like a necessity. You know, nothing's insulated, you know, nothing is energy efficient, that kind of thing. So anyway, a lot of things that we do these days are kind of inefficient. So air conditioning is, you know, we've become very accustomed to it, let's just say that. So if you do need some sort of like air conditioning or something, you may actually want to consider more of a energy efficient home instead of trying to get air conditioning in an off-grid society. Air conditioning takes an insane amount of energy. I mean, just an insane amount of energy. You know, even like the window AC units, they still take an insane amount of energy. Like the minimum that I've seen on air conditioning is like 600 to 700 watts. That's 600 to 700 watts of consistent power that is, my dog just came in, of consistent power that's being used all the time while that air conditioner is on. So if your air conditioner is on for an hour, it just used 700 watts worth of power. And so, you know, we had a whole house solar system that was about 1,700 watts. And then we also, right now, we have a ton of these solar power banks. These are just power banks, but they can use solar batteries. They can use solar panels to charge the batteries. We have a ton of these. We actually have like a 2,000 watt one, more than our whole home system. And you may be thinking, in short term, you know, it seems like a lot of money to be spending on this, but long term, I feel like it's really worth it. But at the same time, even though you do want to, potentially invest in these solar power banks or into the whole house system, we do have to understand that that is still a finite system as well, because there's still maintenance. There's the batteries, there's the charge controller, there's the inverter, you know, there's the solar panels themselves. All these do have a shelf life, you know, and so you will have to maintain and replace and all this. So, but you're basically running your own energy system. And I don't care whether it's more expensive, you know, up front. You know, I would rather be in an off-grid system, you know, controlling my own energy than connected to the grid any day. And we have plans to definitely be off grid again one day. But you know, you're controlling your life essentially and how much energy you are or are not using, but you're also getting creative as well with other energy sources potentially, or doing without. So like, you know, we did without my dehydrator for several years while we were off grid, because our off-grid system just couldn't support it. And it was very sad. You know, I love my my dehydrator, but I learned to dehydrate via the sun. And then, you know, we did a lot of solar oven cooking. You know, we had a propane stove, and we had, you know, wood stove, and, you know, we had various other things that weren't tied to necessarily electricity, you know what I mean? So there's lots of ways to get creative when it comes to living without electricity. And you know, I've talked about this before, and I've talked about, you know, living without electricity or power outage preparedness. I'm going to put links down below in the description. But basically, just think how you might do without, you know, with batteries. Maybe you would have rechargeable batteries because you'll be having a rechargeable system, that kind of thing. Or maybe you'll just have a bunch of disposable, or maybe you'll just use candles, right? How are you going to, you know, cook and heat and cool and all this stuff? It's about getting creative and thinking outside of the modern society that we've built and thinking, well, how could I do without that? So like, I have an electric grain mill, which I love, and I have, you know, power to support it if there's ever no grid, right? But I also have a backup of a manual grain grinder, right? So like, I have the electric one, which I can use as long as I have energy to use it, but I also have a backup manual, or I would just do without, right? So like, we had our electric mixer and we used it a lot, but if we had to do without it, we would do without. We had a toaster, but if we ever had to do without, we could, you know, just toast it on the stove. You know, there's lots of alternatives to do things, and there's nothing wrong with these alternatives. And there's also nothing wrong with wanting those electrical items as well. I love my, you know, my KitchenAid. I love my electric grain grinder. I love, you know, my toaster. I love these appliances, but if I ever had to go without, I could, right? But I will use them while I have the energy. And the same with like a washing machine and stuff like that. Have the washing machine, but maybe you'll air dry, because a dryer also takes an insane amount of energy. And then, you know, you'll just hand wash if you ever have to, you know what I mean? So my point is, there's no reason you have to do without right away, but do have those backup options as well, and have the ideas and start thinking, what would I do without electricity? How would I cook? How would I cool? How would I heat? How would I hygiene, you know, go to the bathroom? All of these things that you use electricity for, how would I do it? You know, how would I get information, right? Books, right? Downloading, printing, all these things. It all adds up together. Just some ideas and thoughts, and I would love to hear more of your ideas and thoughts down below in the description. Remember, adapting is the only way to get by. And also remembering that our system is finite, and it's not as strong as everybody thinks it is. It's not super weak, but it's not super strong, and there's so many upgrades that need to be done. And with everybody talking about wanting to go totally alternative energy, it's scary times, because our system simply cannot handle fully, you know, alternative energy right now. I love alternative energy, but more on like a smaller scale, you know, home per home kind of thing, not, you know, alternative energy powering, you know, 1 million different homes or thousands of homes, right? So each individual system. But anyway, I could go on and on about that. Thank you all so much for watching Conquer Tomorrow by Preparing Today. Leave me your comments down below about your thoughts and how you are preparing to live off the grid, but still with energy sources or without energy sources, however you want to live. I'll talk to you later, bye.